Let me ask you something simple, but quietly important. When was the last time you truly felt your birthday? Not just noticed it, not just replied "thank you" to a few messages, but actually felt it, the way you did when you were a child. Back then, birthdays felt different. You waited for them. You counted days. Balloons, cake, attention. One full day where the world seemed to pause for you. Now fast forward to adulthood. The date comes. You wake up. Maybe your phone lights up a few times. Maybe your mother calls. And then, the day moves on. You tell people you don't really celebrate anymore. You say it doesn't matter. You say it's just another day. But is it? Because underneath that calm response, there's often a quiet story. People who treat their birthday like a normal day aren't cold or emotionless. They're usually the opposite. They're reflective, self-aware, often emotionally experienced. Psychologically, birthdays act like mirrors. They reflect how you feel about attention, validation, and being seen. When someone says, "I don't care about my birthday," sometimes what they really mean is, "I've learned not to expect much." There's a difference between emotional maturity and emotional withdrawal, and birthdays tend to reveal which one we've leaned into. Some people genuinely outgrow birthday excitement in a healthy way. They find meaning in ordinary days. They don't need a specific date to feel alive or grateful. For them, joy isn't attached to the calendar. Life itself feels meaningful enough. But for others, birthdays are complicated, not because of age, but because of memory. They remember times when they cared, and no one showed up. They remember expecting something and feeling quietly disappointed. So instead of hoping again, they lower expectations. They say, "It's just another day." Psychologists call this emotional self-protection. When the brain experiences repeated emotional letdowns, it adapts. It reduces anticipation to reduce pain. This isn't weakness, it's stability-seeking behavior. The mind chooses calm over excitement, when excitement has often led to disappointment. But there's a cost. Over time, protecting yourself this way can dull joy. You start moving through your own life carefully, present but distant. Think about how many people say they don't care about their birthday. Then later, notice who didn't message, who forgot, who stayed silent. Even pretending not to care is still a form of caring. Psychologists refer to this as avoidant validation behavior. You convince yourself you don't need recognition because part of you is afraid of not receiving it. Often, this pattern forms in people who learned early that emotional needs were inconvenient, that it was safer to need less. So when you meet someone who treats their birthday like a normal day, don't assume they're detached. Sometimes they've just made peace with disappointment. They traded excitement for control, and control feels safe, but it also keeps people at a distance, because deep down, everyone wants to be seen, not loudly, not dramatically, just genuinely. Birthdays are symbolic. They mark existence itself, one day a year that belongs to you, not for what you achieved, not for who you became, but simply because you exist. And that reminder can bring mixed emotions: gratitude, loneliness, nostalgia, reflection. Birthdays also trigger something psychologists call temporal self-awareness. You naturally look back at who you were a year ago and compare it to who you are now. Sometimes that gap feels heavy, so instead of facing it directly, people minimize the day, not because they don't care, but because they're processing. For many adults, birthdays stop being parties and start being mirrors. They ask quiet questions instead. Am I growing? Am I aligned? Am I living honestly? That's why celebration changes. It becomes less about noise and more about meaning. A walk alone, a quiet meal, a moment of stillness. This isn't emptiness, it's alignment. In psychology, This is linked to self-concordant living. When your actions match your values, you feel fulfilled even without applause. But here's the human part. Even the most independent people still carry a quiet hope. That someone remembers. That someone notices without being asked. Wanting that doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Because no matter how emotionally mature we become, we don't outgrow the need for connection. We just get better at hiding it. So if your birthday ever feels ordinary, if you worked, drank your coffee, checked your phone, and moved on, that doesn't mean something is wrong. It might mean you've learned that meaning doesn't need noise. But still, let yourself be soft. If you miss the excitement you once had, that's okay. That's not regression. That's remembrance. Somewhere inside you is the child who once believed one day could feel magical. They're not asking for a party. They're asking to be acknowledged. So maybe the real celebration isn't about candles or messages. Maybe it's a quiet moment where you say to yourself, "I see you. We made it another year." That kind of recognition doesn't fade. It stays. And that's worth honoring, even on a day that looks ordinary.